Warning, F-bombs are armed and will be dropped. But for one segment of today's premiere, no, because I will be reading from a script. Okay, Trucker Convoys, aka How to Manufacture a Rebellion. The ghost of Vince Foster rises, but first, unpopular fact, no F-bombs are armed and they will not be dropped. Unpopular fact, the Babbitt shooting was justified. The guard couldn't have known what was going on the other side of the door. I've seen the videos of the passageway where this occurred. It was chaotic. Jaden X's video clearly shows you can't hear people 3 feet away clear enough to understand them, never mind someone on the other side of the door. And barring some psychic powers, there's no way Bird or whoever the shooter really was could have known why Babbitt was climbing through the window and is unlikely to have even known who she was. All he knew in that moment was that someone was climbing through the broken window with a backpack on while bombs had been reported and threats of violence had been issued. I want to underscore this point. Dozens of people in the 2 weeks before the protest said, "Do not go," that it was a trap, that Antifa was going to infiltrate the crowd, and they did, etc. Now, he, supposedly Bird, he sees someone with a backpack on. Backpacks are often associated or often used by suicide bombers to increase the load they can carry. I worked security from 1994 to 2020, and this was one of the nightmare scenarios they would tell us about. I was also in the military during that time frame. This was one of the nightmare scenarios they actually trained us for. Babbitt, having been in the Air Force as opposed to a branch of the military, should have known what she looked like to somebody with even a modicum of training. There's no way to tell a suicide bomber from everyone else just by looking at them. That's the nature of suicide bombers. It's impossible. Indeed, when I first saw the video on 8 January, that's literally what I thought. This was a suicide bomber. I was shocked the bomb didn't go off, since dead man switches are often used to ensure something happens. Be a couple of days before I got the rest of the story that she didn't have a bomb. She was just climbing through the window. I'm glad I was wrong. I really am. Doesn't change the result, but I'm still glad I was wrong. It's a pretty idiotic argument that even someone who's played hide and go seek should understand. The shooter had his gun out and was pointed towards the broken window, giving him a major tactical advantage. What about it? So what? It's as relevant as the fact that she was wearing a Trump flag, or perhaps less, since the flag could have been to cover the backpack had she been a bomber. Bird shooting was justifiable. It was an unfortunate situation, but it was justifiable. Now, here are some legitimate questions which no one has chosen to ask, and I wonder why. Who ordered the security coming up the ladder to go in that way? If I'd been in that passageway at that moment, I would have definitely have thought they were coming to simply shoot us all indiscriminately. Babbitt may have thought her chances of getting behind cover were better if she risked the one gun on the other side of the door. Either way, whoever gave that order needs to explain why he boxed the crowd in rather than brought the security in from the other side of the door and formed a firing line there. They would have been behind the barricades, which would have given them another tactical advantage and still giving the crowd an opportunity to escape if they so chose. Whoever made that decision made a very deliberate decision. Who gave the order to pull the three officers out of the area? Officer presence, busted glass notwithstanding, seemed to be holding the crowd in some degree of check. They should not have been pulled until a decision to open fire was definitively made, which Babbitt, at the very least, would have known, and may have led to her panicked decision to try for the only safety left. End script. The F-bombs can be dropped from here on out. That crowd was extremely hostile, and I can see why somebody might have believed that they intended to get in here one way or another and do whatever they wanted to do. I can absolutely see that. I've been on the other side of the window in training, fortunately for me. Some of that crowd appears to have actually been there for that purpose. Not suicide bombers, obviously, or they would have set their bombs off. But to get in there to beat down anybody that got in their way of interfering with the election count, the ballot count. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they intended to get in there and beat down anybody that got in their way. At this point, I don't even care which side they were on. There is absolutely no denying that Antifa infiltrated that crowd because there's video of one of the pink hat ladies, whatever they call themselves, with a battering ram that looks suspiciously like the one that was used at the Supreme Court the year before, I believe, during the Kavanaugh confirmation. There's a particular gouge in it. It's on the upper right side, about a foot and a half back from the battering end. I remember I saw that and thought, hey, wait a minute, I've seen that one before. Yes, we know Antifa infiltrated that crowd, or well, at least the pink-haired, pink cat, pussy hat. That's it, pussy hat crowd infiltrated that. Also, Jaden X is an Antifa supporter. To the best of my knowledge, he's not a declared member. What was he doing there at all? Oh, that's right, journalism. I'm going to continue to stand by my previous statements that he saw the gun and said nothing. There are dozens of people who tell me I'm wrong. I've never heard it. And I've seen his version of his video. Draw your own conclusions. In any case, that crowd was clearly hostile. If I'd been there, I'd have taken that shot too. The fact that Ashley maybe was legitimately just caught up in a situation beyond her control, unfortunately changes nothing. She was still caught up in the situation as it really was. Whoever pulled those security guards, the security out of the passageway, the moment they're starting to leave, the people who are standing in there are going to either think now's the time to strike, or now's the time. Well, where are they going? Why are they leaving? Something's about to happen. With the other security coming up the ladder. By the way, Those are a special variety of M16. Get to that in a moment. With the security coming up the ladder like they were, there is no way that people in that passageway didn't panic. The guards on the other side of the door, there would have still been that door, that physical barrier that said, if you cross this door, we will shoot you. If you stay on the other side of that door, we may not have to shoot you. You could still leave. But also coming up that passageway cut off the only escape route. Whoever gave the order for them to come up that ladderway knew this and made the decision to tell them to come up that way anyways. The only thing that was then stopping them from opening fire indiscriminately was the 3 security at the door. So whoever made that decision has a lot of explaining to do. Not quite ready to go full in, he committed murder yet. But it's possible. And if you can put Bird as the one who gave that order, by all means, do so. I'll hear it out. You might be right. In which case, murder's back on the table. Until you can make that connection, you need to start backing off this murder talk. It's incendiary, it's inflammatory, and worse still, it's dead ass wrong. All right. I hope I've beaten that horse hard enough that the rest of you will get the message. If you've used the M word, stop. You're exactly opposite of what the evidence is telling us. Now to the subject I really should be dealing with at this point. Trucker convoys, or how to manufacture a rebellion. My maternal grandfather once said, if you hate Canadians, that's okay, you're wrong. Canadians hate you, that's okay, you're wrong. My maternal grandmother was Canadian, by the way. It's a simple fact of the universe. Canadians are just really nice people. All right? It's something genetic in them, I guess. I don't know. But they're just universally nice. Even the cop that jacked up my shipmate was actually pretty nice once he had control of the situation. Right? And the situation was not exactly under control. He didn't hurt anybody. He could have fucked us all up and been right, or at least been excused. He didn't even hurt us. He just grabbed the one guy who was the problem, put him up against the bulkhead, and then made him throw the beer out. That's it. And then he let us all go merrily on our way. Okay. That's just the way Canadians are. And now, Canadians hate Justin Trudeau so much that some of them have actually taken action. Canadians don't do that. That's not their way. And yet they have. And all they did was they parked in the city and blew their horns. I've heard from a very reliable source, from 10 in the morning to 20 at night. Yeah. I know it was 2000 because that's when the little kids hit the rack. Well, that's when I had to hit the rack when I was little. So they were considerate of the fact that these people might have kids. I believe 1000 was the starting time. I might be off by a couple hours, and that's okay. That's it. That's all they did. There's video of them telling a guy who was there with the Confederate battle flag to leave. There's several different people reporting that a guy showed up with the Nazi flag and they told him to leave the first time. There's some people claiming that when he came back about a half an hour later, they didn't ask him to leave, they just beat him. But you know what? They're right. Canadians don't like you, that's okay. You're wrong. They also shut down the Ambassador Bridge, purportedly where 25% of the commerce from the US into Canada and Canada into the US crosses. Well, that's fine. There's like 200 other bridges. I know because Acacia, my first unit, worked the Mackinac Bridge buoy, passed under that bridge half a dozen times over 2 years. Yeah, it's about that. There were many other routes. Closing this one bridge was not an act of violence. They should have just flat out closed it, period. Viva Free actually went on an emergency live stream because somebody he knew at the bridge uh, saw the police moving in. They were doing something that the protesters called kettling. Now, I've never heard that term used before that moment, but it wasn't too hard to figure out in context what was going on. Police were moving up in a line and they were going to swing in around, close the protesters in, and then do whatever they were going to do from there. For reasons that I cannot uh, determine, those cops decided to back off and leave things alone for the rest of that particular day. They moved in, I think it was the next day, or the day after that, excuse me. And there were arrests, and they reopened the bridge. But Justin has also used the Emergency Powers Act. Emergency Powers Act is a wartime act. It's to enable the Canadian government to basically take over the country like a mini dictatorship ish thing. Uh, and not very good dictatorship in the event of war. The United States has our own version. It's the National Defense Act, under which there were threats of Donnie basically taking over factories during the early days of the coronavirus to make respirators and everything else that was suddenly needed so badly. He didn't do that. In the end, he was able to get companies to just agree to manufacture. My company was doing it. The company I work for now was making parts for respirators during that time frame. This is before I worked there, so and I'm okay with that. Either way, we have our own version. I'm sure France and Britain and Australia have their own. Russia, China, you name it. Why is he enacting this wartime law? But he's promised us faithfully that he's not going to activate the military. Dude, who do you think you're fooling at this point? Right? Well, let's just go there. You used a military law, a military act, but you swear you're not going to bring the military in to put down these, quote, rebellions. These are the most unviolent things I've ever seen as far as protests go. I've seen legitimately peaceful protests with more violence than that, and I've been in one of them. It's an anti-war rally in 2003. I believe it was it was 2003. Well, somebody got a little out of hand, and the cops ended up spraying basically everybody in that area, myself included. For the record, I was there to see what was going on. I was just curious, what does an anti-war rally really look like? Then two dumb motherfuckers started wailing on each other, supposedly about drugs. That's what I heard the next day. And cops sprayed everybody. Thanks, guys. You know what? Could have been a lot worse. I could have actually gotten hurt. As it was, I just came home smelling like pepper spray. Anybody that believes Trudeau's story that he's not going to activate the military after using language like rebellion and insurrection is living a fucking fairy tale. He's just, at this point, waiting for something to happen that he can turn the violence loose. As of right now, I'm actually very shocked that I have not heard of a shooting. Maybe it happened and I didn't hear about it, but I haven't heard of one. And I'm pretty sure I would have heard about that before too long. You can't hide something like that, right? As much as China likes to pretend Tiananmen never happened, there was video, live feed from China, and you could hear the shooting in the background. The BBC? I think it was BBC. So please, for God's sakes, Justin, stop with the lies. Just stop, right? Nobody's buying it. It's that simple. Nobody's buying your story. Gets worse. All right, so GoFundMe had a campaign to support the truckers' protest. Excuse me. They shut it down because the chief of Alberta, police chief, I think it was the Alberta police chief, said these protests are not legal. That's all he did. He claimed they were not legal, right? He never took this matter into a courtroom. He never got a district attorney to sign off on it, crown prosecutor to sign off on anything. But he's told them it's an illegal protest. Oh, well, we're going to pull the money. GoFundMe tried to pull a scam. I'm just going to say it. GoFundMe tried to pull a scam. I believe they knew exactly what was going on before it started. We're hoping to get a couple $1,000,000, shut it down, and then do what they were about to do when somebody helped them to shut it down. The Alberta police chief. Once they had the accusation, that this was an illegal protest, they shut that campaign down and said, we will return the money to anybody who asks for it, but the rest of it we're going to give to whoever we damn well please. And that was the whole plan to begin with. Based on consumer feedback, or is it customer feedback, all of a sudden they realized they were in deep, deep, deep shit. Literally up to here. They realized that that was an act of brazen fraud. They couldn't just give the money to whoever they wanted to. So they backed down and agreed to return all of the money, whether you asked for it or not. Okay. Well, that's one funding stream cut off, with the money being already earmarked probably to BLM itself. So the organizers switched to another outfit, one I had heard of once or twice before, I think, Give, Send, Go. So Canada told Give, Send, Go, you can't do business in this country anymore. GSG got kind of clever. They they almost got around that. They converted the donations to crypto, which they then passed forward because you can't trace crypto, at least not as easily. Well, um, rather than just accept that he was wrong and people do support the truckers, Justin had their bank accounts frozen. As of the last check, which was about um 30 minutes ago, those accounts were still frozen. Oh, so now these truckers can't pay for their fuel, they can't pay their rent and mortgage, they can't pay for their kids' dental work, they can't pay their taxes, they can't pay anything. Okay. Well, that was a real bad move. The things that the truckers are actually protesting, that could happen to literally anyone. Let me tell you what the truckers are really protesting, because I've been there, I've done that. 18 months ago, the truckers were heralded as heroes. They were braving the virus, they were braving the bad weather, they were braving the protests, they were braving everything else to deliver the mail and the groceries and the lamps, the backpacks, the cups, books, whatever. But mostly they had weathered through the storm of COVID itself when it became seriously outbreak pandemic, and we're hearing thousands of people dying every day. This is around March, April, May 2020. You know, the 2 week period. And now they're being told, because they didn't get in line first to get the vaccine, that they are Untermensch. They are subhuman. They will not be allowed to work anymore. I said I've been there, I've done that. In March, excuse me, May or June of 2020, I tested positive. Didn't talk about it at the time because I didn't care. I actually wouldn't care now, but for what I'm about to tell you. And by the way, I went out and got the virus. It took me 2 weeks to track down what we now call a COVID party. I have a medical history that anything less than HIV, I'm just absolutely contemptuous of. You know what? Not entirely sure I respect HIV either. That's the truth. I survived meningitis at 6 weeks old. The moment the first person rolled out of the hospital having recovered, I knew this thing is survivable. I can do it. If anybody could survive it, I'll be the first in line. That's the day I started looking for this part. Actually, I guess it was closer to a month and a half. Well, it was 2 weeks when I got kind of panicky and started literally calling people and saying, "Hey, do you know anything?" It is what it is. My miscalculations were my miscalculations, and I'm okay with it. Either way, then I learned of something. This the plasma thing. I've heard the proper term a dozen damn times, and I always forget. And fuck you if you can't take a joke. Either way, the moment I heard about that, I knew the coastie in me came out. I would even go to my appointments with my old working blue shirt on. I never told anybody, right? I just showed up with the working blue shirt. And, yes, I'm here to donate, right? You know, don't talk about this because I'm very self-conscious about it. Um, you don't donate plasma, you sell it, right? Now, in my defense, I was also spending about $180 to sell my plasma. Um, I was only getting 200 back. I was doing that twice a month. There is actually 28 pints of my plasma out there. And if what I'm told is true, oh, what I'm told is true, 1 pint of COVID plasma can save 4 lives. Well, it's 4 treatments. Most people only need 1 treatment. Some people need 2, and in extreme cases, like a dozen nationwide so far, a third treatment is needed. Okay, fine. Third treatment is needed. That's the way it is. Excuse me. For a year, people like me were being considered heroes. Okay. If you've ever been on the other side of that conversation, you realize it's really awkward. It's like a 4-letter word and you don't want to hear it. Rather be called a faggot than a hero, to be honest. It is what it is. Um, and then the rules changed. We could unmask if we had a vaccine card. I hadn't gotten the vaccine. I didn't need it. And I knew that there were other people that really do need the vaccine. All right. I am 1000% sure that there are people out there that if they don't get it, they will die. It is what it is. It is a drug, right? And you will have to reuse the drug periodically. And there are people out there that are so medically fragile that if they don't get that drug, they will die. I am 1000% sure of this. I say put them at the front of the line, let them get it first. People who will potentially have a significant probability of death or serious illness, put them next in line. But people who have a potential of serious illness but not hospitalization, I suppose. Put them next in line. Put people like me, people that this virus couldn't kill if you literally drowned them in it, just way the hell at the back of the line. And that's where I had put myself. Way the hell, not only at the back of the line, but I kept moving further back as other people seemed to be appearing, right? Because I had already gotten the virus and recovered. I had an innate immunization. Felt like crap for a day. Really felt like crap for a day. Like for that one day, I thought I was going to die. I felt that bad. The day after, I really felt like shit too, but at least I didn't lie there thinking, oh my God, I'm actually going to die. Fuck me. I'm going to die. This one's beat me. Right? It is what it is. Everybody else either absolutely needs it or at least potentially will benefit from it. Me, I mean, I am immunized. It is kind of that simple. And now, after a year of being called hero, which, like I said, if you're on the other side of that conversation, all of a sudden it gets real awkward. Like, yeah. No, moving on. Um, Now I'm being called Untermensch. I'm having my ability to stay employed threatened. I'm having my ability to leave my house questioned. I'm being told I must continue to mask even though I can't get the virus and I can't pass it to anybody now because it goes into my body and it dies. Right? My body is a COVID killing machine. And yet here I am, being forced to wear a mask that I don't need because of a vaccine I don't need. How bitter do you think I am? Let me give you a clue. I'm too bitter for the F bombs. Yeah, it's that bad. And it gets worse. You Canadian truckers, it's a shame. It really is. That you didn't hear about my story 6 months ago? Yeah, well, it was July of last year. It really is a shame you didn't hear my story then because I was a warning sign of the direction this is going to go. Everybody who was being called a hero of the crisis in between February and December of 2020, if they didn't get right at the head of the line to get the vaccine first, they will eventually be called Untermensch as well. That's what the protest is really about. And you do have absolutely no one to blame for that but yourself, Justin. You did this to yourself. Oh, excuse me. Now, with the Canadian government having decided to illegally freeze these accounts, I can foresee that all Canadian truckers are going to suddenly go out sick for about 3 weeks. Yeah, about 3 weeks. They're going to make sure that they stock up on groceries and medical supplies and beer. Lots and lots of beer. You're going to need it. Over the course of probably the next 2 weeks, maybe three, there'll be some sort of magical date that every trucker knows this day is important, or every Canadian knows this day is important, or every Canadian, or maybe every Canadian knows this day just happens to be important to Canadian national identity. They're all going to call in sick that day. Those who are already on the road are going to call ahead and say, hey, I'm sick. I can't get out of my truck. What are you sick with? I don't know, but I have a fever of 100. I'm not getting out of my truck. I'm going to drop the trailer in your parking lot or in your yard or in your whatever. And then I'm leaving. I'm gone. Good luck to you. You're on your own. And then they're just going to go home for about 2 or 3 weeks. Once upon a time, I worked at a Walmart. My job was to stock the dairy case. One of the supervisors actually made a point of it to talk to me one day and say, I always know when you've been here. And I'm like, the hell are you talking about? The days when you're here, dairy case is all full. I don't have to go back there. Oh, okay. Well, I had just moved to this very hot region. I just moved to Nevada, okay? And it was the middle of summer, too. From a very, very cold region, Oregon. That dairy case did not scare me at all. Nice light jacket, and I was back home, freezing my nuts off. All a matter of perspective. They say dairy case is cold, and I say no, it's not that cold. I came here from Oregon. This doesn't scare me. Meanwhile, everybody else was afraid of the dairy case because it's cold in there. So they'd do literally anything to not be in there. I watched my immediate supervisor and other one of my other coworkers go in there same time to get the same thing in order to be out on the floor where it was not so cold. Actually, it was not cold out there at all. The heat that scared me, right? One of the things I learned working in that dairy box. Oh, here's your payoff. One day, the delivery, uh, well, it came in heavy the day before. So they skipped us for a day. Then the next day, it came in very, very, very late. There had been some sort of traffic jam, and the truck was caught. It was about 15 minutes until I'm supposed to clock off, and I had not that much to do today. So they drug me out of there and made me go stock shelves out in the nice, warm, uh, shopping, main shopping area. Fuck my life, right? Um, 15 minutes before I'm supposed to clock off, the truck finally arrived. There was none of the store brand whole milk. That was gone. Those shelves were so empty you could see all the way through the dairy case. There was none of the uh, what the hell is Walmart's brand? Great Value. That's it. There was no great value 2%. There was none of the premium uh, whole milk. There was only a couple of the premium 2%. The this is section 8, the welfare milk, half of that was gone. People were buying that just to get milk in their houses. There was no chocolate milk. There was no almond milk. Um, the Fairlife actually had run out the day before. What else was gone? The almond milk was gone. Um, yeah. I mean, that dairy box was basically barren, and I had to try to restock it in 15 minutes. Well, I didn't succeed, but I did get a lot of it filled. I got basically every shelf, at least a few up. And then as I'm clocking out, I'm telling, my boss, hey, I didn't get much done. They just arrived 15 minutes ago. Yeah, I know. I had them come get you. Okay, well, see you tomorrow. Huh? Go ahead, go. Right? Now put that on 2 weeks of no deliveries. How much hate and malcontent do you think that's going to generate? It took less than 48 hours for well, just over 48 hours for us to basically be empty with all of the Canadian truckers sitting at home drinking beer, drinking milk, and watching hockey or whatever, while Justin's sitting there screaming at them about how they're in rebellion and he's using the emergency uh, emergency powers act. I believe that's the title, emergency powers act. And if they don't report to work by tomorrow, they're all fired. Fuck you. Then I'm fired. What are you going to do about it then? You're going to replace me? Well, good luck with that. Because all of us are refusing to report. Everybody who has that license is refusing to report. What do you think that's going to do? Oh, yeah, that. For those of you that have been following the channel for a while, you know I believe absolutely that there is a terror attack coming. It's going to be mass shootings, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Well, one thing you should care about in the wake of this terror attack, truck drivers are going to become very recalcitrant to leave. They're going to demand police escorts. And I honestly don't blame them. And there can't possibly be enough cops to escort every truck everywhere. All you have to do is shut the system down for 48 hours. That's it. You can create enough panic just that way. The reason no panic occurred when I was working there is because everybody was caught in that fucking traffic jam. So everybody was a little bit calmer about it. Hey, we understand we're caught in the same traffic jam. Nobody's caught in that traffic jam. Nobody understands why there's no milk. Oh, that's going to create all kinds of shit, all kinds of problems. The terror attack version, at least people understand, hey, yeah, we just had a major terror attack. That's why truckers are demanding escorts. We're locked up in our houses because we're afraid to go out ourselves. I'm going to say this the way it really is. I believe Justin knew that this was an inevitable consequence, and that's why he did what he did. He went out of his way to antagonize the one group of people he absolutely needed on his side, ever and ever, amen. And he went out with the most callous possible method to antagonize them. After having called them a hero, called them heroes for the last just short of 2 years now, go back and say, you're subhuman, you don't have a right to work, you don't have a right to take care of your family, you're Untermensch. Ooh, that's going to poke a bear. That bear poked back. And if he keeps poking that bear is going to bite him so hard he doesn't even know what happened. Okay, reading. Oh, I got so many open windows in here, it's not even funny. Whoa, damn it. And then I closed them, literally all of them. Okay. All right, so this week will be Section 10 revisions. Any revision to this act or any other bill that may in any way impact this act must be approved by a two-thirds vote of both houses of Congress and presidential signature, or three-quarter vote of both houses of Congress in an immediately subsequent session of Congress. Failure to sign a revision shall be treated as a veto of said revision. Each section affected by any revision must be individually approved by Congress. Any vote that fails to pass, if conflictory to the rest of the act, shall invalidate the entire revision. Okay. I've often said that I believe the next generation of firearms will be energy based. And I keep saying phasers because that's the one most people understand. Um, some jackass 10, 20 years down the road after Dadislav passes says, I don't like phasers. I want to ban them. He knows he can't get phasers banned with even the three-quarter and signature. So he puts it as a rider on a um, a normal humdrum bill about technology, supporting technology. Let's say, um, we're gonna free up working conditions for tech companies in uh, nascent technologies. Oh, okay. So you can make people work 80 hours a week below minimum wage? Well, yes. Oh, okay. Well, is Congress going to go along with that? Yes. Oh, okay. I'm going to put a rider on that to ban phasers. Ha ha. Well, no, that's not the way it works, Tim. It's not how any of this works. This bill, because it has a clause in it that would affect the 28th Amendment, the new right to keep and bear arms oh, amendment, will actually have to be voted on. And because that phaser part failed to pass with Congress, with the 2/3. The House was like one vote short, and the Senate passed on just that one necessary vote. The president said, I'm not going to sign it. Well, I guess that's the end of that, right? Now that whole tech bill is also dead. Yeah. This is intended to prevent people from sneaking shit in on, even if it's a related thing. New technology, phasers, right? It would be tangentially connected. It's still dead. This whole bill is dead because you put a writer in it. Congratulations. You're an asshole. And if you try to sneak 2 or 3 others in there with it, you might kill the bill because all 2 or 3 others also have to be passed individually. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that 100% of Congress is willing to go along with the ban on phasers. Great, good. Congratulations. All right. But only like 10% of Congress is willing to get on board with a ban on brass knuckles. Okay. Well, the phaser clause passed. Great, good for you. You're an asshole. Brass knuckles clause failed, which means the whole bill is dead, including the phaser ban. That sucks for you, don't it? Failure to sign a revision shall be treated as a veto of said revision. Yeah. If the president doesn't sign most laws, the president, if he doesn't sign it with that, and I believe it's 10 days, it becomes law without signature. Not this one. And if Congress wants to override that veto, they better get on it and do it right away. They can't wait 15 years and then go back and say, oh, hey, we want to override this veto from 15 years ago. No. You better get it done right away because you don't get a second session of Congress. This whole section is written the way it is so that if you want to amend this, you better go through at least bare minimum the same requirements that were necessary to pass it. To be perfectly blunt, if it were up to me, it would require a 3/4 and 3/4 and signature and no veto override. There wouldn't be a veto override. It would be 3/4 of each House of Congress and the president signs off on it. It was not solely up to me. And it is what it is now. That's it. You at least have to meet the same standard to revise as to pass to begin with. Okay. Because something new is coming along, I'm going over something old. Be in the description. I've said you have to keep warm. You also have to keep the sun off of you, especially if you live in a very sunny place like this. These are sleeves. This particular company, they sell them as ultraviolet protection. And I'm actually 100% sure that's true. No scam, nothing like that. That legitimately to protect you from the sun. As you can see, that's really all it does. It just gives you a barrier. What it also does is give you a barrier against the wind. So, going along, actually, let me redo this. You have the crisis arise. This is actually something you'd have to kind of plan a little bit for, especially if you have very loose sleeved shirt like this one. Put the sleeve on over the sleeve of your shirts. And you put your glove on over the sleeve. Actually, you put your jacket on, then you put your glove on last. This helps to prevent the wind from crawling up your jacket sleeve and freezing your arm off. Having work security for holy shit. 94 to 2020, okay? You do the math. I'm not interested. I can tell you that nights can get really cold. And that wind crawling up your arm is one of the most distracting things you can face. The reason I'm talking about sleeves again, even though this is like tier 4 shit, something that if you didn't have it on when the shit hit the fan, you probably wouldn't have time to put it on later. Papa Carey found something. Just Google farmer armor. Apparently, there's an outfit out there that makes these built around specifically protecting, excuse me, farmers from, I assume, thorns and sharp bits of whatever. I have no idea yet. I haven't actually gotten into it too far. But it was a much easier to find option. And they actually do look like they're a little bit more robust than this. This is just a really basic thin material. Those look like they were made out of some substantial uh, material that would protect your arm a whole lot better from the cold, at the very least. Okay, going for an hour and 2 minutes. Now, because I said things about Justin, about the pandemic, I can almost guarantee that this video will get yeeted within 48 hours. So, it's going to be up on the BitChute channel and on the Full 30 channel. And I'm even going to try and see if I can get it uploaded to Facebook without it getting uh, nuked from orbit. As you all know, my channel's in, um, well, I refuse to toe the line. I refuse to lie to protect Davy Alba. I just farted, and I have a higher opinion of that than I do of her. On the other hand, they didn't delete the last one where I called her a cunt. So, might be onto something here. Either way, be sure to check those out there. I will email this to anybody that requests it, if I can. Remember, Niner 17 is coming. Whether you like it or not, I don't give a fuck. I really don't care. It is coming. So, keep calm and manage to carry on.